My name is Catherine Greenhill. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the chair of WIMSIG at the moment, and I'm just going to say some words. Eventually, a little bit about what WIMSIG does in case some of you might not be, some of you know very well, and some of you might be less familiar. So a bit of an overview of what WIMSIG does, and at the end, some things we've been discussing this year in particular. But first, I want to thank everyone involved in making today happen. Traditionally, this is done at the end of the day, but this conference has two different ends of the day, depending on where you are. So I thought I'd start with a photo from the first ever WIMSIG conference, which was in 2017 at the University of South Australia, which was a wonderful event held over 3 days. And today is also a wonderful event held under very difficult circumstances, and a massive thank you to the organising committee for this conference, who figured out a way that those of us who could meet in person can meet in person, and it's wonderful to see you on the little Zoom windows, talking to each other in an actual room, and that the rest of us can join in online. I'm not going to read out all of the names, but thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to all of the local hub organisers who have brought this sort of vision to life in Adelaide, Brisbane, Hobart, Melbourne, Perth and Sydney, in person or online. So thank you very much to all of you. And I hope those of you who are meeting in person have a cupcake for me. A massive, massive thank you to today's plenary speakers, both Christian and Shirley from this morning, and Hamadeh and Asha, who will talk to us this afternoon. They've just been brilliant contributions to our conference today, and those in the future I'm sure will also be brilliant. Okay, so a little bit of information about WIMSIG. I will talk about all of these bits as we go along. There's an executive committee, and there are several other people that help us, that take important roles and make things happen, including the conference organising committee for today, who are going to have to find other ways to spend their time from today. This is the current executive committee. The structure is that there's an incoming chair for a year, and then a chair for they become the chair for 2 years, and then you hang around for another year to help the chair as immediate past chair. So Jessica is the immediate past chair, and we lose her at the end of this year. And the student member is also a 1-year position. So Eleanor will be leaving us at the end of the year, which means that we'll be looking for a new incoming chair and a new student member. And I see that the October WIMSIG newsletter went out today to members and friends. It also goes on the web, and it has instructions on how to nominate. So if you're interested in either of these positions, please think about nominating for them. And nominations close, I believe, on the 30th of November. If you have any questions, you can contact me or Eleanor about those roles, or probably Jessica as well. Okay, at the moment, the structure of WIMSIG is that to be a WIMSIG member, you have to be a member of the AusTMS, and that's because we're a special interest group of the AusTMS. But we also have friends who receive all of our communications, and so they're not members of the AusTMS. And as of April this year, there were 343 members and 219 friends, and membership fluctuates a bit depending on whether people renew their AusTMS membership. So you can see that it's grown a lot since we were founded. And I'm going to start telling you about some of the things that we do. So one of the important things is communications, communicating items of interest to our members. Joanne Hall is the newsletter editor, and Amy Glenn is the webmaster, and they've been doing these important roles for years, and we're extremely grateful to them. This year, Emma Carberry is going to be our returning officer, so any nominations will go to her. And if there's a vote for either of those positions, she'll be organising the vote, so we're very grateful to Emma as well. The newsletter goes out every month near the start of the month, sometimes on the 1st, like today, and sometimes close to the 1st. And the deadline for items is the 27th of each month. So if you ever have any items that you'd like to see go into the WIMSIG newsletter, just get in touch with Joanne before the 27th of the month. WIMSIG is on Twitter, has been for a couple of years, and we've got 404 followers at the moment, which is up from about 360-ish at the end of last year. So find us on Twitter if you want to, and tag us when you tweet. Okay, another thing we do is there are some WIMSIG events. So the big ones have been the conference in 2017 and today, and hopefully others in the future, the big get-togethers. Since International Women in Maths Day started a couple of years ago on the 12th of May, Mariam Mirzakhani's birthday, WIMSIG has been involved in administering some funding that ASIMS kindly had offered to fund events for the 12th of May. And when in-person events became difficult recently, like last year and this year, we've also contributed to social media campaigns around that day. And then in previous years, the before times, there were regular WIMSIG gatherings, giving people a networking opportunity about twice a year, a sort of morning or afternoon tea type thing. What has become traditional and a much loved tradition, I would say, is the WIMSIG events at our major conferences. So there's a WIMSIG dinner, usually the night before the annual AusTMS conference starts, and a WIMSIG lunch at the annual ANZIAM conference. And these moved online the most recent times they occurred, successfully held online. And it's a bit unclear to me what's going to happen at AusTMS this year. They're planning in person. I suspect there'll be a hybrid situation, but something will happen, and same for the ANZIAM lunch. So yeah, we at the AusTMS dinner we introduce the women plenary speakers to everyone so they get a chance to know them before the conference starts. Another thing WIMSIG does is manages 3 AusTMS awards that I'll tell you about now. The Cheryl E. Prager Travel Award provides full or partial support for Australian-based women, trans and gender diverse mathematicians to attend conferences or to visit collaborators. So it used to just say women, and we expanded it a little bit this year for this current round to make it more inclusive. I'll be saying more about that shortly. The Anne Penfold Street Award provides additional financial support for people with caring responsibilities so that they can attend conferences or visit collaborators. And conference organisers can also apply. So if you want to be able to offer some childcare to delegates in the future when we can have people attending conferences in person, then this is an option that you can apply for the Anne Penfold Street Award. And the Mariam Mirzakhani Award was established in 2019 in honour of Mariam Mirzakhani's work, and it is to support women international students pursuing a postgraduate degree in maths in Australia. There's 2 rounds for the Travel Awards, which are the first 2 awards that I mentioned, with closing dates basically today, the 1st of October, and also the 1st of April in each year. And there's 1 round of Mariam Mirzakhani Award every year with the closing date on the 1st of April. And these awards are, the applications are looked at by the selection committee of people who are appointed by the executive committee of WIMSIG. So we are very grateful to our awards committee for their work. This is some people who've helped out last year or this year, or in Melissa's case, about to start in this role. So we're very grateful to you. Thank you. Even in a pandemic, we were still able to give away a couple of Cheryl Prager Awards. One was for registration for an online international conference, and one was for a domestic research visit. And this year's Mariam Mirzakhani Award went to Maud Al-Hasham, a PhD student at QUT who works on the analysis of PDE models of invasion, which sounds pretty cool. Okay. WIMSIG runs a mentoring program. We started it, the pilot scheme was launched in October 2019. This was something that members had indicated they would be interested in. There were, in the initial program, 25 mentor-mentee pairings made, and surveys went out to see how everything was going, and then we decided that we would run the mentoring program again this year. It's going from July 2021 until February 2022, which means the sort of changeover from year to year is after the big summer break where nothing happens. So if you think you might be interested in future years, either as a mentee or a mentor, you could have a look at our website for some more information. We're very grateful to our mentoring committee. This is the mentoring committee for this year. Thank you to all of you. And really, Barbara Mainhout should be here because she was on the mentoring committee last year. So thank you for Barbara as well. Okay. One of the things WIMSIG is involved with is advocacy at various levels. So the WIMSIG Chair is invited to sit on some committees. The National Committee for the Mathematical Sciences, which is part of the Australian Academy of Science. The Matrix Advisory Board for the Matrix Research Institution, and the Australian Council of the Heads of Mathematical Sciences, which is a big meeting that happens at the start of the year. This year, the National Committee, NC Maths, has been reviewing its decadal plan because we're halfway through, and they requested feedback from the community on the decadal plan, and they specifically requested some input on gender issues and other equity issues from WIMSIG members. The executive committee worked on this with some input from past chairs and other prominent people and fed that into the review process. Last year, when Jessica was chair, she was invited to contribute to a rapid research information brief on the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on women in STEM fields. That was for the minister. Yeah, so there's things that arise that we try and deal with. All right, so now I want to tell you a bit about some of the things that came up this year that we've been discussing. And one is inclusion, inclusive language, stuff like that. So WIMSIG, as originally founded, had the aim of supporting women in the mathematical sciences in Australia. And the executive committee would like to see WIMSIG broaden our support to include trans and gender diverse people as well. So we implement, or to explicitly include them, we implemented more inclusive language on the website in September, and in preparation for doing that, we consulted with some trans and gender diverse mathematicians and also the leadership team of Queers in Science, and we requested feedback on that through our newsletter. And as I mentioned earlier, the eligibility criteria for the Cheryl Prager Travel Award was also made more inclusive in time for this round. So it's always been the case that anyone could be a member of WIMSIG or a friend, and this is really about the aims of WIMSIG. So related to that, there's a rules of procedure document for WIMSIG, which can only be changed after a vote by members. And there are a few things that we'd like to propose, a few edits. So we'll put that out to a vote at the end of the year. And we'll be asking members to vote on these changes. One is to stagger the terms of the Secretary and the Treasurer so that these two very important roles don't both come to an end at the same time, because it's happened in the past that a new chair was trying to find their feet at the same time as a new Secretary and Treasurer as well. So it'd be very nice if one of those roles was always someone who had the experience of the previous year. We noticed that the language used on the website for the aims of WIMSIG, even before this most recent edit, is quite different to what the rules of procedure says the stated aims of WIMSIG are. And I went on the web archive, the Wayback Machine, all the way back to 2013, and this different language was already there since 2013. So we would like to propose some changes to sort of bring that more into line. And then as a third thing to put to members is the use of inclusive language, the more inclusive aims of WIMSIG. So we're going to be putting those to a vote for members. This call for the vote should go out sometime in November after the call for nominations ends, and we can see, well, Emma can see whether there's going to be a vote for either of those positions that are becoming vacant. And the email will carefully explain the description of the proposed changes so that you know exactly what you're voting on. Okay. The other thing that's come up this year is a new organisation called Asian and Oceanian Women in Mathematics. So as many of you know, there's a Committee for Women in Mathematics, which is a committee of the International Mathematical Union, and Cheryl Prager is currently a member of that committee. And the CWM has ambassadors in in practically every country, like a huge list of countries. Australia has about 4 ambassadors, I think, and one of them is the chair of WIMSIG. So in June this year, the CWM ambassadors from Asia and Oceania met for the first time over 2 days. We had a couple of research talks, there was a panel discussion, and each country had a chance to give a 3-minute talk to sort of introduce themselves and say a little bit about the situation for women in mathematics in their country. At the end of this meeting, it was decided that a new organisation should be formed, which would be called the Asian and Oceanian Women in Mathematics. Sorry, there's no the. It would be called Asian and Oceanian Women in Mathematics. It'll be a similar thing to European Women in Mathematics, so it would sit under the CWM and as a kind of umbrella over various national groups, including WIMSIG. A working group was formed to try and figure out the guidelines for this new organisation, and I found myself on this working group, so I've been looking at that. We've got a draft now, which has been sent to all the ambassadors, and they want us to circulate it within our networks, which means it will be circulated to members and friends for comments. So if you have any feedback on that, please let us know. After you've seen it, I'm not going to attempt to do it today, but maybe next week. And that is all I wanted to say. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, if we have some time, so if there are questions for Catherine.
Do we have a good way to measure the impact of WIMSIG activities? That's a question. Difficult, isn't it? So AMSI collects statistics, mostly on women in the mathematical sciences. Any change in those numbers or proportions would be due to a range of factors. I guess we know that the travel grants and the Mariam Mirzakhani Awards impact positively on the recipients. I certainly know that the conference in 2017, I mean, I was on the organising committee, but I still wasn't sure what I felt about a conference of this type. And I just remember how kind of deeply amazing it was to sit in a room where men were this tiny minority and hear all these amazing research talks. And yeah, I just thought that was phenomenal. So I think some of these things are hard to measure, but from the feedback we got from something like the first conference, I think we can say that it does have an impact. But if any of you have any ideas about how to measure outcomes or anything that we should be doing, we're always very happy to hear them.
It looks like there's
another question. So I believe, I mean, actually, there's a few people here who've been on the selection committee who can probably answer this better than me, but I think you just, you fill it in and you say how it's a relatively modest amount that you can apply for under the Anne Penfold Street, so it might not cover the full cost, but you just cost up. I mean, Jessica, do you want to say something because you were on this? Or does anyone else want to take it?
I can.
Valentina, yes, please.
Okay. So if that's okay. So one of the organizers of the conference can apply individually, mention that it is for the organization of the specific conference. And then basically all paperwork that is prepared is about the conference. It's not about your travel personally or so on.
Right. So
it's very easy to apply, but like Catherine said, it is a small amount, so please do apply.
Yes, we'd love to give the money away. If you look on the WIMSIG website, which is on the OSTMS website, so if you put some keywords into it, you'll find the Anne Penfold Street page. And there's a separate page that you reach from the right-hand menu, which says awardees. So I'm just going to scroll through. And for example, in 2019, Dan Matthews applied for money for OSTMS 2019. So that supported some provision of childcare at the OSTMS 2019 meeting, just as an example. So if you find someone you know on that list, you can ask them how it works. Another way to do it. Or our treasurer is always happy to answer questions.